getting into the conversation we started this morning on bullying. And I told you we're not going to be doing this alone. We already have a guest in the studio in person of Bara, Wiwa. She is a clinical psychologist. Good morning, Bara. How are you doing? I'm great. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you are familiar with, you know, the story that has been making rounds on social media at the moment with Sylvester and everything that is happening. And it's a sad one, but it's a reality that a lot of us now need to check. I mean, when we started the show, Adi and I were talking about bullying in secondary school. A lot of us faced it.
Definitely.
And now, I mean, we don't see it. We didn't necessarily saw it as bullying, especially if you lived in Nigeria. I mean, discipline was beaten, per se. So it wasn't a problem per se. And then when you report it to your parents, they'll call it training. But for a layman, let's break it down. What exactly is bullying?
Yeah, so bullying is the unwanted aggressive behavior towards another person. It can be from his fellow students or the teachers or staff in general. So that's what bullying is. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the. I wanna address maybe some of the mental causes that would push a person to bully another person, to exhibit this aggressive behavior onto another person. Now, since we're talking about secondary schools, we'll contextualize this to children, you know, because, interestingly, bullying, you agree with me that bullying can be found in the workplace among adults as well. It's not something that is just common among children. So, what kind of mental states, you know, can push a person to exhibit conscious, aggressive behavior towards another child?
I think so. When aggressive behavior is present in a child's family, so for instance, if a child has a parent that's aggressive towards each other, whether it's verbal abuse, physical abuse in the house, the child can pick that up and do that in school as well. Or it might not necessarily be that. It might be that the child doesn't have enough attention at home. And so to show power, they will intimidate other people. So it's a power thing as well, because a lot of times when children don't have an avenue to express their anger or frustration, they pour it, the projection thing, they pour it on the closest person to them, or like the person they feel like they can intimidate.
Yeah. You know, so what I'm getting is when there is no sense of belonging.
Right.
Am I on off tangent, or am I close?
I mean, yeah. So it's also a thing of conformity and peer pressure as well, because a lot of times a child might not necessarily have issues at home, but then because they want to be part of the group or part of the gang, they might now, you know, you want to intimidate this group of people to show that, you know, we matter. So yeah.
Interesting.
But how can you, so now I want to shift the conversation to parents very quickly. How can you identify that your child is a bully? Because when we break down this conversation, and I mean, I've seen situations where parents will say, I didn't know that he was exhibiting this. I mean, a child can go home and just be a saint, or not just say anything and be in the room, and nobody has ever come to report until there was a major incident in school, and they had to call the parents, and the parent is like, I've never seen such behavior. So how can parents identify such behaviors in the kids? How would you know that your child is a bully in school?
I think so. You have to, as a parent, you have to pay very close attention to your children. You need to ask questions, you know, speak to the child's teacher as well, because a lot of times, yes, things might be happening, but then they wouldn't tell you. Obviously, if they are bullying people, they would not tell you that as well. But, you know, if you are paying very close attention to your child in school and at home, and correlate, you know, the behaviors, then you can, you know, you get the information you're looking for eventually.
Well, it changes a bit when we focus on secondary schools, on boarding schools rather, doesn't it? Right, because, you know, in the context of a boarding school, you know, I was in boarding school, and we would be in school premises for like 3 months.
Definitely.
You know, so I realized I was actually more in school than I was at home with my parents. You know, so how can a parent now navigate a situation like that?
I mean, it's still the same thing because yes, they're in school. Because children are going to be in school most of the times anyway. Because you really just come home for holiday for a month or so. Having communication, the teachers and the school is supposed to be able to give you information about your kid. And so if there's a shift in behavior, the school is supposed to be able to report that to the parents as well, because it's their responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Responsibility, that's an interesting word. That's an interesting word when it comes to the role of educators and teachers, because you know what we're seeing in the Sylvester case is actually, apparently, you know, the case is still investigated. The school is trying to cover up, you know, what actually happened. So when you say the word responsibility,
because the school is supposed to create a safe space for every child, in academics, in general, because you've placed your child in their care, so they have a duty of care to your child and to the parents as well. So it's part of what they are supposed to do, you know. So if your child is, for instance, if your child is failing, they are supposed to let you know that, oh, your child is failing in this area, this is what we are supposed to do, you know, have like a plan on how they can help the child. So in a case where a child is being bullied or is bullying another child, that should be reported to the parents, and then there should be a plan or whatever to, you know, help solve that situation. So yeah.
It is now. Let's put this into perspective. There is the bully, and then there is the child that is being bullied.
Right.
Victim.
There's the victim. How do you know that a child is a victim in school? Because if we put into perspective what we went through in school, you don't want to go home crying to your parents that your mate, somebody that is probably in the same class as you. What is even worse is if you are bigger than that person. And you don't want to go home saying that, mommy, this person has been pinching me, or mommy, this person has been eating my food, and all of that. So how do you, or if you have a child that is highly introverted, how do you identify that your child is being bullied?
I think so. A lot of times when a child is being bullied, they withdraw. They are quiet, they don't talk as much, you know. So when you notice your child is no longer, you know, a parent should know their child's personality. And when you notice that your child is coming out of that, you need to, you know, ask the child the questions of like, oh, what's going on in school, what's happening? So when there's a change in character or change in personality traits, then, yeah, I think isolation is one of the most common symptoms, like the child withdrawing, not talking again, or a child being anxious, or, you know, if you are taking your child to school and the child is crying, then there's an issue. That means they are scared of something is happening in school. So, you know, so those are some of the things that you need to look out for as well.
All right, so I want to talk about the mental states of a victim. All right, you know, people watching, listening on this conversation this morning are probably wondering that it's just bullying. It's not that, you know, it's not that deep now, you know, in secondary school and things like this, right? So let us put it into a larger perspective, right? What are some of the consequences, mental-wise, that bullying can have on a victim, you know, moving forward, whether within that particular year in school or even as an adult? You know, what kinds of consequences can bullying cause in a person?
Yeah, so there are different kinds of bullying. There's physical bullying, where there's, you know, they're pushing the child or kicking the child or pinching the child. There's verbal, where they taunt the child. There's social as well, where they spread rumors. So that can have different effects in the long run in terms of poor self-image, anxiety, depression, you know. So a child can just, you know, develop depression as a result of, you know, being bullied all the time and all of that. So in the long run, that's going to affect how the child sees themselves, how they accept themselves, their self-worth, you know. So all of these things are consequences of bullying as well.
So as a psychologist, have you had situations where parents, you know, come and then meet you and say they don't know what to do, the child has been bullied, and in fact, the child who's been bullied is probably a more popular one, but my child is a bully. What do I do? Have you ever had situations like that?
I've never been put in that situation, but in that situation is to find out what is happening in the house. Why is the child exhibiting you know, these behaviors, because a lot of times it's just a reaction from something else. So for instance, the father might not necessarily be at home, or, you know, or the child feels like the father doesn't care, the mother doesn't care, you know. So children just want to react to get, you know, attention. So yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we asked people to send in their experiences, their bullying experiences. And there's this particular story that I want to read to you.
Okay.
So this is from Anoluwakwo from Ogun State. We asked people to send in their comments on what is your bullying experience in school. And Anoluwakwo says, I am a chubby lady, naturally born chubby since childhood. If you know me, you'd also know that anyone can mistake me for a guy, because I also have facial hair and on my legs too. This made schooling for me back then very, very difficult.
Yeah.
It was even worse in secondary school and university, as any little thing I do, my body was the object of ridicule. People used to call me a boy. Even when I managed to have a boyfriend in school, they turned him against me, and he broke up with me. Each and every day, I used to get horrible gestures and comments from everyone, including few teachers. Fatty, ugly, weird, etc. They used to say that no one can ever like me or be friends with me. This bullying wasn't only in school, but even my relatives used to say that. And still I get these comments from many people. I used to cry every day after coming home. I used to hide my face every now and then. I was really scared and insecure. These things gave me anxiety disorders, which are still there. The most horrific time of my school life, I was just a teen girl bearing all this every day. What changed now? I'm still chubby, I still get facial hair, but now I love myself the way I am. I work out, I practice skincare, I take care of myself even more, and most importantly, I don't bear toxicity. Am I perfect now? No. I have marks on my face, I'm chubby, I have belly fat, my thighs aren't slim, I have stretch marks and many imperfections. Sometimes I still get insecure, but the thing is, I love myself and I will improve myself. So now here is a question that I want to ask from this particular comment. Why is it that so we like to say that children are angelic and sweet and beautiful
and innocent.
and innocent, but then I realized that growing now, as a kid, I realized that some children were very mean.
Yeah, children made my life hell in school. So it was not like teachers, you know, it was other children.
Yeah.
You know.
Some children were very mean. And I mean, you were saying something about background and upbringing and all of that. And sometimes, maybe because I don't live with them, but sometimes I see their parents and I see the child and I see the parents and I see the child. And I'm like, where did you come from? So how do you I don't even know how to put this question, because I don't want to say that some kids are wicked. You would, I mean, I see people and then you hear all the kind of things. Imagine this lady in primary school where they're just 5, 4, 6.
Yeah, the most is what, 11, 10?
10.
Yeah.
The most in primary 6 is 10, and you're already calling somebody fatty, ugly. Oh, look at you. Oh, you are this and that. So let's put into perspective the bully and the victim. She was being bullied by people in her class or people around her, by her teachers, by her relatives. In fact, let's even leave the student. Let's talk about relatives for a bit.
Where it starts from.
How do you go through that as, you know, a young person getting comments like this from relatives? Is this also bullying? Because sometimes people will tell you that, oh, we love you, and that's why we're telling you, so you can lose weight, or you are too slim, or look at you, why do you look like this, and all of that. Would you also call that bullying?
Yeah, because it's negative talk as well. It's affecting the individual, and so I would say family or relatives have responsibility. Everybody has responsibility to, you know, how they speak to somebody, you know, because your comments have impact on people, regardless of, you know, how you say it, or, you know, if you are trying to help the person, because somebody else might feel it's verbal abuse, you know. So yes, you have responsibility to your child or to your niece or nephew, or to what you say to them. You can go about it in a different approach. You don't have to be saying, oh yeah, fat, you know, okay, yeah, you look bigger, you know, what can we do to help you? Do you want to lose weight? Do you love yourself this way? This particular lady, I like the fact that she says she loves herself now, because it's about self-acceptance, self-love, taking care of yourself, affirmation. Those things are very important, because the truth is that you never get to a point where you don't get negative comments or negative stuff. You just have to be able to shake it off, you know, counter those comments or those thoughts, because a lot of times when you hear that a lot, you start having negative thoughts about yourself. So it's now you working to counter those thoughts, because your behavior is determined by how you see yourself as well. So
yeah. So, you know, in your experience as a clinical psychologist, have you dealt with adults, you know, who have had low self-esteem issues or whatever the case may be as a result of bullying? And how have you, or how will you, you know, approach, so for instance, someone like Anu or Lakbo, how would you approach this particular person?
Yeah, so it's, I think, yes, I have, but I don't think it's only because of bullying, but then it's a compounding problem, because it will be bullying and then it will spiral into something else, and then so like, yeah,
maybe
like
even
said,
drug use, right?
Yeah. So it gets worse, because people, like you said, drug use, people eventually use substance to like make themselves feel better. I know somebody who had low self-esteem because she was bullied, or you don't talk a lot, so she drinks to be able to speak in public. So the thing of countering those thoughts as well, affirming yourself, accepting yourself, you know, knowing your self-worth. So the thing of, you probably have to work on self-acceptance, self-worth, you know, how you can improve yourself, your own strength, you know, and yeah.
But how do you deal with that when your oppressors are in your house, are in your domestic space? Now I'm talking about, you know, this thing that we pointed out as family bullying or the family members. And, you know, as you said, it's very interesting that it's usually under the guise
of love and care.
We want the best for you. You know, how, you know, considering like a young adult who's still living at home, how would a young adult have to deal with this situation? Because you go home, you know, you have to deal with this situation. You probably go to work, you know, where you probably have to deal with this situation as well. So how, you know, would a person best deal, you know, with bullying at home?
Yeah, so in this situation, you can't necessarily remove yourself from the situation, but then if you see somebody talking to you negatively, you can take yourself out of that conversation, or you create a space for yourself where, you know, you are comfortable, or you speak up. I don't like how you are speaking to me in this way, you know. Yeah, and then shaking off the comments that they've said to you. Like I said, countering those negative comments with, oh, if they say I'm fat, I feel like, oh, I'm beautiful. I don't need, you know, I don't need to believe what the next person is saying. You know, you need your own validation. You need to validate your own self, regardless of like family or, you know, relatives or other people telling you. You know.
Well, it takes a while. Sorry.
Yeah, it takes a while. It's a journey. It's not something that's going to happen in one day. You know, so it's going to take time to, you know, start believing the positive things about yourself, because it's difficult, because if you've heard that for a long time, that is now embedded in you, but then you have the choice to be like, I don't want, you know, I choose not to see myself in that light.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you so much, Bara, for joining us this morning. This was an insightful conversation. We're talking about bullying this morning, and we're moving to another phase of the conversation. We want to see the roles of parents and teachers in this conversation. Do not go anywhere. Tea or coffee continues after this break.